we renamed our own panel because originally the panel name was Advent of SLMs and Edge, and we said that we didn't like the word edge. I'm curious for anyone's thoughts, open to all. Edge versus on-device. Why do we care about on-device?
I'm going to give a less technical, a more of a business shape answer, which is that when you look at the technology market over the last 50 or so years, there are sort of waves of the way that things go. You know, we have mainframes, and you're supposed to do everything on the mainframe, and IBM wins this by facilitating businesses to succeed on mainframe. Then we have microcomputers, where instead of putting everything in one central place, you put it on everybody's computer. Microsoft wins by enabling Windows developers. Then you have the web and Web 1.0, and Google wins by making it easy to make money off of the web. Then you have smartphones, and instead of being centralized on the web, you split it out into every smartphone, every app. And now we have just experienced a revolution where we say, no, we're going to put it all in one big server-side model. And we're slowly exiting that phase. And the real question is, who's going to enable all of you, the developers that are going to build the future, to make money, to make new markets, to make new user experiences powered by AI that really run locally, are really representative of users and you as companies?
Just a little bit of step back, and from the investment perspective, I always think about, is it really necessary? Type of the question. You mentioned that too. So definitely we need a balance between on-device and cloud. And getting back to the on-device, you never ignore the hardware constraint. You don't want your device out of battery, right? So constant communication with cloud consume a lot of battery, right? So that's one of the fundamental reasons why we want something running on device and be smarter and intelligent, right? And to find that right use cases, is it text summarization or transcription would be the one thing that you really want to have? That's the kind of constant question. And that might be the reason why not 100% of the people in this room are that familiar with Apple Intelligence or Gemma or Phi, something like that.
I did actually have in mind hardware constraints. You guys are doing some really fascinating collaborations with Qualcomm, MediaTek, and ARM. And I do think when we say about on-device, we have to talk about what devices and what we're designing for, because there's been a lot of advances in model distillation and condensing all that intelligence to a 2B model. But at the same time, we have to make advances on the hardware. So basically, I guess my broad question is, what hardware advances are we looking for? You can speak to yours, and then maybe from the rest as well.
Yeah, I think we've seen this for maybe a long time in terms of numerics. For those following in the space, I guess I'm old enough to remember IEEE 754 and we were wondering maybe 10 years ago, is it really needed? Do we need that precision? Do we need full flow 32? And then we started as a community figuring out that we don't, and numerics continually get basically lower and lower. And now the latest NVIDIA, the Blackwells will be FP4 or some kind of quasi version of it. And so I think ultimately this is gems and gem Vs, and I think we're still trying to figure out. To Karan's point, I'll make your point for you. We're trying to get rid of this quadratic hell of attention and try and get that to a linear path. And I think
you're doing it at the hardware level, or you mean at the model?
Right. Well, for me, we're aiming at better algorithms and kernels, right? We're trying to solve this for mobile devices anyway. We're trying to solve it at the GPU, at the compiler. Things like generating better kernels with Triton, better libraries, better integration. But you're trying to actually solve it at the algorithmic level, which I think it makes a ton of sense. And from our perspective, we can influence with what we're doing, given our apps, given the popularity of our apps, given the popularity of our models, and kind of what we're doing. And we work closely with all of those folks. And I think they help us also in turn to help us build a community around our work, which creates a flywheel, and more people optimizing our models, more people working with us using Ollama on say ARM or Qualcomm, because we use Qualcomm in all of our reality labs, a lot of our headsets as well. So
yeah, I guess on the hardware side, I would say as a smaller company, I think one of the key challenges is that the software support for a lot of hardware is not very good, and so when you're working on the architecture side, you want to really figure out how to be more hardware aware on the algorithms you're building. so you can get the most out of whatever chips you're working on. And I think portability is a big issue there as well. So I would really hope that any advances in hardware are accompanied by the appropriate compiler and software pieces to be able to do a lot of the work that we do, which is really trying to understand like how do you make these models much more efficient by design, so that when you run them, they're just lower power and so on. I think the other piece there is I think that there's a lot of low latency workloads, I think like robotics and other places where we should start to see the need to pull in a lot of data into the model and stream like very high resolution data very, very fast. And so that will be interesting because that will require both the models and the hardware to work together quite efficiently at low power. And I think those devices will be quite interesting to see emerge. And hopefully, you know, the software will be ready for that as that emerges. So I think there's a lot of mobile-centric use cases, but I actually think there's so many sensor-based use cases that will require smarter models to be sort of running all the time on top, and I think those will be quite interesting as well.
Responding, Karen's point about, hardware's readiness to provide the proper compiler. I'm not the engineer, but based on my communication with the other engineers, I think it's the pace of the AI is too fast. So, right now, all the startup companies are focusing on algorithm, architecture first and software layer. And now they are realizing, by the way, we need to incorporate the hardware factors too. And that's why, you will require some certain compilers or specification from the hardware side, which is inevitable, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why now people saying that, NPU is not proper to incorporate the, MOE, things like that, right? So that's there, and we are getting there, right? So basically, we know now realizing the limitation of hardware constraint, and of course, from the hardware perspective, we are pursuing better NPU and better GPU, and how we can incorporate those chipsets on the device in the right price range, because we have to sell the device. If it is too expensive, people will not buy it with that price range. So there is some compromising point, and I think we are at the verge of getting into that point.
Michael, anything on hardware insights?
Yeah, actually, over this weekend, I was just at Qualcomm's Snapdragon Summit to announce our partnership with Qualcomm. And we started off by supporting the compute platform. So all the devices, the laptops that you see today. But what's super interesting is going into the future, what about these wearable devices, connected cars, etc.? And these are some of the devices that we see coming on the line, and they oftentimes use the same platform. And so by having the same drivers, same firmware, we can start building applications that are targeted towards these devices.
You somewhat serve as a unifying layer between all these architectures, right?
Yes, we work with multiple hardware vendors to make sure there is support for running the specific models.
Is there a standard that would help make your life easier / compete with you?
I don't think it would be competition. We would happily use that standard if there is one. And right now we are working with these hardware.
Right now you are the standard.
Yeah.